afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. Welcome to our expert panel, Democratizing AI, How Low-Code, No-Code Platforms Are Changing the Enterprise Landscape, brought to you by our friends at Informatica. I'm Brian Mink, co-founder and president of Data Science Connect, the world's largest data and AI community. Today, we're excited to welcome hundreds of attendees from all over the world to discuss how advancements in low-code, no-code platforms are shaping the future of data and AI for enterprises, with implications for scalability and innovation. What if creating AI tools were as simple as dragging and dropping? Low-code and no-code platforms are making this a reality, giving anyone in the business the ability to build data and AI solutions without needing a background in coding. In this webinar, we'll explore how these tools are making data and AI accessible by eliminating technical barriers, enabling fast development cycles, and fostering creativity within enterprise teams. We'll also learn how organizations are leveraging these tools to solve complex challenges, streamline processes, and drive innovation across departments. We're honored to hear from a distinguished panel of experts today. Amar Srivastava, Director and Global Practice Leader at Informatica, Gerstl, VP of Product Development and the Chief Data Office at ADP, Morgan Cundiff, Data Science and Machine Learning Manager at LTK, and Rosalia Tungaraza, AVP of Artificial Intelligence at Baptist Health, South Florida. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. First, to make this feel a little more in person, we suggest you add a photo to your profile and include your bio, LinkedIn profile, and other information you want your fellow attendees to see. Next, please take advantage of the Q&A and chat features in the right sidebar. We'll be addressing your questions throughout the webinar, so be sure to upvote the questions you'd like the panel to address. If you're wondering where your organization stands compared to others on your AI journey, check out the poll question in the right sidebar. And finally, to learn more about how to leverage low-code, no-code tools in your AI journey, check out the call to action below throughout the webinar from our sponsor, Informatica. Now, without further ado, I welcome our panelists to the stage. All right, so we're going to kick things off with some intros. So if you could just tell our audience today a bit more about who each of you are and what you do in your current role. So I'll start with the way that you guys appear on my screen. So we'll start with Gil.
Hey everyone, it's wonderful joining you all today. I'm Gil Gerstl. I've been with I'm the VP of Data Products and Data and AI Governance at ADP. My career thus far has been kind of a mix of different things. Spent about 10 years in military and government, then have been switching between startups and large companies, mostly in operations and product areas. For the last few years, I've been quarterbacking ADP's data and AI governance process, and how do we do responsible AI and bring AI forward with innovation across the organization. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Welcome, Gil. Rosalia.
All right, so I'm Rosalia Tungaraza, and I am an AVP of AI here at Baptist Health, South Florida. My role is basically running the AI program here. I started it, and now it's grown, and we do pretty much everything when it comes to AI, from developing new use cases to deploying them to standing up AI governance, all the way to AI literacy across the system. And my background is in computer science and engineering. I've been doing AI ever since I was in grad school. Yes.
Thank you. Welcome, Rosalia. Amar.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Brian, for having me here in the panel. So my name is Amar Srivastava. I have more than 19 years of experience in enterprise architecture, digital transformation, and AI-driven business strategy across various industries. So I work with I started my career with a startup, 3-4 years there, and then moved into consulting space, and then now I'm working with Informatica. So currently I am leading a global practice at Informatica, and I help our customers leverage AI, cloud, and data to thrive innovation and efficiency. And while doing that, I try to ensure that for our customers, the technology adoption is strategic, scalable, and value-driven. Glad to have you all.
Welcome, Amar. And Morgan.
Hi, everyone. I love all the Data Science Connect events, so very happy to be here and talking with all of you as part of this panel. I have a background in machine learning and data science, both in the biology field and more recently the fashion and e-commerce space, which has been really fun. My degrees are in bioinformatics, so worked a lot in the biology and research science space. So it's been fun making that tradition into fashion and e-commerce, a bunch of different use cases there. Currently, I lead the data science and machine learning team at LTK. So not only in the fashion space, but also stepping into that creator influencer space, learning all about that and those kind of businesses. So it's been a ton of fun and exciting new space to be in over the last 3 years.
Awesome. Always a pleasure to have you join us, Morgan. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with the first question here. So low code, no code tools have been around for a while. They're not necessarily anything new, but what is new is the ability to leverage low code, no code to develop some really high powered data science and AI tools that are both make jobs easier for folks in data science and AI, but also enable democratization to business users, non-technical users. So I want to dig into that for a second. How do you guys see these kinds of platforms? How have they evolved over the last few years, and what is now possible that maybe wasn't possible or was a lot more difficult before? Amar, why don't you start with that one?
So yeah, so as you mentioned, Brian, like this is not something new, and I've been like almost 2 decades into this industry, and no code, low code is always there. Right now, it's evolving. It's taking new shape in terms of AI. So like I would say what we are trying now, this low codes are doing is we are developing AI with the utilizing the AI capabilities eventually. So now this tools itself is backed up by AI as their foundation, right? So to help develop new AI capabilities. Now, when it comes to these AI led initiatives, or basically the no code, low code automations, basically, like it's always been drag drop from quite a while, but now we see that a lot of pre-packaged sort of recipes, like you have a kickstart to do things, and then there's now co-pilots, right? So obviously we are going to an era of agentic AI, but yeah, before that, now many co-pilots are really helping as a partner in the things people are developing, and that's where they are accelerating. So I think the biggest advantage as of now they are giving is to test things fast, to move things fast. Like it's like reducing your development time to like 40%, 50% roughly, right? And that I see that's the biggest advantage, and that's where it is going.
Thanks, Amar. Gil, what are your thoughts?
I think it's the main change, I would say, like, and again, low code, no code, as Amar said, has been around. It's not new, but it has significantly improved. And I think like AI is in its current generation, I'd say it's brought into our lives about 2.5 years ago at this point. Um, Essentially brought forward much better interaction between humans and machines, and the ability for non-technical individuals to be better understood, right, by machines, and kind of the intent understanding from better natural language understanding and processing has greatly improved the ability of machines, or kind of these platforms, to provide what non-technical people are actually looking for. So I think that is the key change, and the shift in technology that allows for this to be a much more significant role take a much more significant role in experimentation and in this world today. So I would say that is the key difference that made this possible, and is driving this forward as we look forward into the future.
Yeah, great points, Gil. Rosalia?
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely agreeing with Amar and Gil. You know, the biggest thing that I think, I mean, it has been around for a while. It's changing now with Gen AI. You know, it's being applied. Gen AI is being applied in these settings, and so it definitely democratizes AI. We have people even in our company that are not data scientists that now are building AI solutions, and they're building them very quickly. Right, one, because we make use of some of these tools, and which is good, right? You want a lot of your employees that are interested in this tech space to be involved, right? At the very least, be excited, be champions. But it's even better if you can get a lot of people to participate, because then you increase the amount of experimentation that you can do, right? If you rely on usually it's a small set of hardcore data scientists who can build code from scratch and what have you, it takes a while to get through any solution. And, you know, and then in AI in general, especially if you're building things that vendors haven't already built, which is really where you want to be if you have a team in-house. You want to experiment widely and quickly and fail fast. So I think, the idea of low code, no code, and the fact that it's improving and now with Gen AI makes it very easy. You don't even have to write code. You use natural language and you get your first version. It really is speeding up how fast we can do things.
Yeah, excellent points about experimentation, and I think that enables organizations to not spend more money than they need to developing something that maybe there isn't a good business case for, and you can deploy it very quickly, see whether there's a business case for it, and then decide if you want to scale it from there and invest to do so. Morgan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a bunch of people have made great points, so I will try not to hone in on them too much. But I think a lot of it is also just a lot of the benefits of overall AI that can now be extended to more places. So I see a huge one as reducing just the manual load on jobs where intense expertise in a specific subject matter is still needed. I love giving this example of I used to work in biological research. In biological research, and we were doing a ton of behavioral analysis. And a lot of that you need kind of in-depth expertise on what you're looking for, the types of nerves you're looking for, the end result. You need kind of the same person to be verifying the data throughout an entire experiment, but it can be super, super manual. You're going through images. And in one study, I was going through images and looking at these images of mouse retinas and trying to count the number of nerves. And that can take weeks for a single experiment. And so, we didn't have, the funding, the ability, the need for a full-time data scientist on the team, or, to hire out someone who had never worked in biology to kind of write a system to do this. But now there are like low and no code toolings that you can use to at least make that easier, do basic edge detection, brightness detection. There are kind of all these options out there to maybe not remove that work from the biologist, but kind of give the expert in the field this head start of here is how much we think is in the image. Can you just verify instead of having to manually go and highlight each nerve in the image? And so I think that is the real benefit here, is that you're putting this ability in the hands of the direct expert who does need to be the person maybe verifying the data or looking at the data directly, rather than having kind of layers removed sometimes between, an external third-party consulting company who's building out a model and the actual biologist doing the day-to-day. I think that's a huge benefit, and will be really exciting to see, how people use it in fields that maybe a data scientist or myself would never have thought to use it, because we're not in that field every day doing that work all the time. So I think that is a huge benefit that I see coming out of this.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Really tapping into the subject matter experts to be able to provide their expertise and getting them closer to what's actually put into production. Getting to the next question, I want to talk about, we've talked about obviously some of the benefits, but what are some of the limitations that organizations should be aware of when implementing low code, no code in the data and AI context? Obviously, while there are many exciting things about engaging business users, and there are also a lot of challenges that come with that, a lot of risks that come with that. So I'm wondering if you guys can speak to that. Why don't we start with you, Rosalia?
Well, I mean, one of the risks is really relying on the fact that you may not need an expert, right? So you sort of, there needs to be guardrails in place. Just because it's low code, no code does not mean that you can get away from needing to know some of the core concepts. In terms, for instance, you're building a model, you're using it to, like data robot, able, and what have you. You can get enabled. Well, maybe not the one. You can get to a point where you're trusting it so much that you're not applying the fundamentals of data science. And I think that's a risk. So there needs to be guardrails. Yes, you're allowing these people who are not data science experts to come in and help out with the process. But how are we going to ensure that it's still, you will still follow, the workflows that we go through. We follow proper AI governance if you're going to build AI solutions, right? Or even if what Morgan was talking about, if you're using these tools to speed up things that were manual work before, how do you make sure that you don't miss things, right? Just because you're relying so much on the tool. So basically having guardrails in place.
Yeah, governance, very important. And I think with all use of AI, not checking our own judgment at the door, I think is a major one, and not assuming that every output is going to be correct or that it's going to be what's needed, and really putting that human component in there as well. Those are great points. Morgan, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I love everything Rosalia just said. I think that is like the counterpoint to what I was just talking about, which I think is so important. It's amazing that we can allow kind of these subject matter experts or non-data science to take on some of this work and use it as they need and in different use cases. But that also means, they don't they need to take that time to say, hey, what data are we feeding in, what data are we getting out. I think a lot of data science training and experience right now is learning when there are patterns in the data that are not supposed to be in the data, or that you don't want to be training a model to replicate. And what does that really mean? How do you dig in and find those? How do you, eliminate that if there are, patterns in the data that you don't want to be expounding on with your own model? And I think that is a lot of the expertise that we are building in data scientists. And so if we're moving that work, onto a different kind of subject matter expert, how do we make sure that that training comes with it? Whether that's part of the tooling and something that is built in, whether there's, consulting or, what have you, that sorry, that needs to be added on there. I think that is the biggest call out and kind of exactly the positive and maybe downside or caution to having different subject matter experts build these tools.
Yeah, great points, Morgan. Amar?
I think one important thing, right, and that's what we kind of, when we discuss with the customers or the large enterprises, that when you are thinking of doing this AI adoption with the no code, low code solution, so just don't look easy tactical solutions, because with the evolution phase we are going through, right, there are a lot of new tools also coming in around AI to as a no code, low code sort of uh, solutions to give you some quick and easy way of doing things, but they might be tactical, right? And what I mean by that is we need to look the big picture. So we talked about regulations. So that is one of the things we need to see in the big picture, that it's not just a matter of stitching some AI capabilities together, right? That's not what we want to drive. We want to drive a business outcome, a business transformation strategy out of this AI no code, low code implementation. It's not just about stitching, because many organizations we talk to, right, they are still in the experimentation phase, and while you are in this experimentation and doing those POCs, it's fine, like you can do any sort of things, but eventually anything AI need to deal with the data, right? So eventually the data is the foundation for everything you do in the AI, not the other way around. So, and that is where you need to make sure that whatever you are doing, whichever persona is working, so we are giving now the toy eventually. So when we are democratizing it for implementation, we are kind of allowing everyone to play with it. So not sure till what point you heard, but yeah, the intent is that your data need to be regulated and governed, and that the guardrails we are talking is more around data before you give it to play with everyone, right? So that's where the companies need to look, or the organization need to look the big picture and make sure the solution they are kind of selecting provides that broad capability, not just a drag drop or configure sort of option, but it can build that guardrails, right, around those data points in the AI, so that you can meet the regulatory requirements, and also you can go beyond this experimentation phase and you can productionize this solution in a real world. So scalability and all those things need to be there.
Yeah, great points, Amar. Your AI is only as good as your data, and so governing that appropriately before you roll out tools more broadly in the organization. Gil, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah,
I think I agree with everything that my friends here just said. I think at the end of the day, it's about there are like three main areas that I would focus on the limitations. One is really what we talked about a lot thus far, is around security, compliance, governance, obviously topics that are very close to my heart, and that pertains to kind of the quality of your data, as well as like how well do you guardrail the use of AI and the risk inherent in it, because the individuals that are using it are not necessarily as literate in the risks and kind of the limitations and where are the things you should not do. with AI, or not the right things. And I think a second piece to this is level of flexibility, right? It allows like rapid prototyping and like faster work earlier on, but there are flexibility and like there's like edges to what it can do. And with like more hands-on customized like code based, I'd say you usually can get further and closer to what you would want or need, but again it moves it further away from the subject matter expert. So it's a balancing act that we'll need to think about. And really the third part is scalability concerns. As we look at enterprise grade applications, they need to be like as close to bulletproof as you can get them, right? And for as long as you don't have like closer controls around governance, scalability, and those kind of further kind of really fine refinements of what it needs to do, you put yourself at a certain level of risk, I would say. So those are the key limitations as we look at an enterprise grade, and we want to implement it into our platforms or products.
Yep, great point, Skill. So related to that point, having these guardrails, figuring out what this rollout would look like to different types of users, one of the needs that's going to inevitably arise is for customization, right? That's part of, if you scale, especially across different business units, across a lot of different users, they're all potentially going to want different things, have different use cases. And so how do you balance that desire for some of those customizations with the ease of use and with governance and sort of all the other questions that come with scalability? Why don't we start with you on that one, Morgan?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm going to give the annoying answer of it depends, is my short answer. And I will definitely go more into that. But I definitely think questions like this can be handled on a case by case basis and can be an iterative process, right? I think we see so many situations where maybe it's totally fine to get started with something out of the box that is low code, no code. And maybe there's, iterations and more improvements that can be made on that. And that is a great way to, get running, get started, get something out there, do a lot of testing, see if it's working, seeing if it is, delivering the value you want it to give, and kind of explore how it's being used by whoever your end user is. And then, as needed, can add further customizations. And if you get to the point where, you're looking for improvement that you don't think you can get from a no code, low code tool, maybe then it's time to either switch to an in-house solution or, get a contractor or whatever you need to get a more custom data science solution in the door. But I think a really fun opportunity for a lot of these low no code solutions is just how quick it can be, especially for a team that maybe doesn't have full-time data scientists on staff. I think whether or not you do, this is a great option as like a first step, but I think it can be like a really cool way to trial something out and seeing, is it worth investing time either in the cost of, outsourcing, or not necessarily outsourcing, but, hiring contractors, or, having data scientists, machine learning engineers spend the cycles to build this out. Let's find out. Let's try a no code, low code solution and see how it works. So I think a lot of this balance can be that they can actually work in tandem, where maybe a step one is one of these solutions, and then down the line, maybe you need to move to something more custom. And it really just depends on, the cost, but also the risks that you are adding with kind of exposing that data to an outside tool or something like that. So I think those are all important things to consider as you move through each case and decide what the best first step is there.
Great points, Morgan. Gil?
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think it's that balance it needs to be, I would say, in some of like this, where does it fit in the life cycle of a solution, right? I know we've in other parts of industry, we talk about shift left, right, and security, how we move things more further upstream. And if we think about the funnel for Gen AI or AI use cases across the board or development more broadly, right? There's a big bottleneck at the top of the funnel, right? Like where the engineers, the capability to actually start and do something, even with a POC. One of the things that this actually enables is actually to reduce that bottleneck and move it away from the top of the funnel, right? We can have at the top of the funnel more experimentation, more prototyping, more that we can do to actually see, is this worth pursuing? Is it worth trying to make into something more enterprise grade? And I think that will be the balance. It'll be more enablement at the business user, at the non-technical user to experiment and show initial potential value, proof of value, proof of concept. And then as we like mature it within organizations, we can go down that path and create it and create the robustness that we need, and usually requires to get more into the metal, into the bare metal, and build those guardrails in and build those capabilities. So it will foster more innovation, right? When that balance, like more testing, more experimentation, but will then have a certain of handoff that will bring more and more deeper understanding, more explainability, more governance, more guardrails that are required as something is maturing into something that's going to be used repeatedly and potentially with customer impact.
Okay, great point, Skill. Rosalia, what are your thoughts on this one? Balancing ease of use with customization and scalability.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Gil and Morgan, and I would say this is not just good for non-technical folks. I actually think even data scientists or other technical folks should absolutely make good use of this if, of course, the company can afford the tools. Some of these tools are quite expensive for that very reason. They make life easier if you know what you're doing. But I think, it speeds up development of these solutions. At least, like we said in the beginning, there's the fact that you can build it quickly, right? And then figure out whether because an AI solution doing ideation is fantastic, doing development is exciting. It's only after you put it in a pilot that you realize whether there's a there or not. Right. And so this really speeds up. And I would argue not just for non-technical people, even for technical people. And I know us technical people don't like to use these things because we like to build things from scratch, we know it all. But I'm arguing that it's actually a good place to start, because then you don't spend hours building something that's going to end up in the trash can. Right. Just kidding.
Yeah, great points, Rosalia. Amar?
I think it's pretty much covered with my here. So I think see, it's going to be a hybrid approach for quite some time, right? In terms of no code, low code plus customization, because while for AI very specifically, these things are getting mature and a lot of experimentation is going on. But yeah, I think there's a coexistence for a good period of time where I think this no code, low code will go in with some customization here and there. I read I think a year ago a study from Forbes where they mentioned that 60% of enterprises they're going to integrate custom coded modules with their low code, no code platform for long term scalability. So obviously that's how I think. Obviously, I think the no code, low code solutions are evolving at a faster pace. So we might bridge this gap earlier than it is expected. So let's say if someone thinks it will take 3 to 4 years, eventually it might be in the next 2 years, right? So there's a coexistence. I think organizations should follow as a principle that they kind of do not promote sort of customization, because eventually that becomes a maintenance overhead and creates some technical debt, and that should be not driven from the low code no code as a principle, and then wherever it is mandatory and necessary, then only do some customization and all.
Great points, Amar. So I want to talk for a moment just to double click on something that Rosalia said about what this means not only for non-technical users, but what it means for technical users, and the opportunity for technical users to speed up their development pipeline significantly, to do a lot of things in an automated fashion that maybe used to require a lot more manual effort. So how do you guys see the role of AI specialists shifting as these platforms empower non-technical users to maybe do things that they used to do, and also empower technical users to do things faster than they used to be able to do them themselves? So Rosalia, why don't we start with you on that one, since you made the point last?
I was actually quite just thinking about that. Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I can't predict the future, but I think what I would say, and maybe you can come back to me later, is it certainly is democratizing AI, right? In the past, people would be scared of building AI solutions, not understanding it. Even when you describe it to folks, you build a solution and describe it to folks, they're having a hard time following, right? Now, I think the barrier to entry has been lowered significantly. Everybody can build a simple classification model, if you want to, right? And a lot of these other ones as well, especially NLP analysis with Gen AI is so easy now. Just put it in ChatGPT and you get a lot of stuff done. I mean, not everything, obviously, I'm not saying everything. There's some things that you still need that expertise, you still need that customization. So how is it going to change the roles of data scientists? Don't have a crystal ball. I don't know, but I feel there needs to be some evolving that happens as far as what data scientists do today. And I'm not really sure what that next stage is. So maybe I'll leave my other colleagues here to answer that one.
Gotcha.
Sounds good. Gil, why don't you weigh in on that?
Yeah, so I think in the data scientists, the scientists more broadly historically have the mad scientist hat or kind of visual that we think about with kind of going and experimenting and with lack of focus on kind of downstream impacts or kind of the broader picture in some cases. I think that is probably what's going to have to change. And even it's something that you see in terms of the dynamics with AI teams or kind of centralized AI teams and organizations, and they become much more focused on the scalability and robustness of AI solutions and Gen AI solutions across the organization. From teams that used to just show, hey, this works, go build it. The need to have deeper explainability of AI and a deeper understanding because it becomes so central to core functions is key, and that's where their expertise come into effect. And while historically, I would say it was somewhat opposite to their focus, I think there will have more and more significant role in governance and monitoring of AI solutions and capabilities. The establishment of kind of proper, responsible AI, the monitoring and assurance of accuracy, of bias, of toxicity in models will be foundational because they will require that deep understanding and that deeper understanding the kind of what the common users will have. And further, I think they will serve as educators as we try to democratize and we try to bring this vision or these capabilities to a broader set of individuals across the organization. We'll need to have we talked about subject matter experts in kind of different areas in HR or biology. We will have our subject matter experts in AI that can be the educators, the consultants to those groups and individuals. What can you do? What should you not do? Where are the limitations? And I think that is their role they will have to take as well because of their deeper understanding moving forward.
Yeah, great point, Gil. I think really shifting from thinking of data and AI practitioners as people with a particular set of skills to really having expertise. And I think that's, those with expertise that get beyond just sort of basic skill sets or using certain platforms. Those are the folks that are going to succeed in this new environment where maybe the tools are more democratized and available to less technical users.
Yeah,
great.
Agree.
Amar, your thoughts on this?
So my perspective on this is it's going to be collaboration will be the key for this optimal AI solutions. So eventually, it's not like they have a threat that they will kind of not be relevant. Eventually, that these AI specialists will focus more on designing robust architectures. So see, eventually we talked about we want to build guardrails and all these things. And for those things, we need people who understands it in a deep sense, right? Not because while we are democratizing and giving the things to everyone hand, we need people who knows it really well and can create things. So AI specialists will focus on these robust architecture, governance models, and also the advanced algorithms, because while what is existing, somebody has to implement it, we have to advance it on the next level where we need these specialists to be there and evolving. So basically they will work as an advisor. I would say that they are going to be an advisor, or we can call it AI coaches. So these are the AI coaches for citizen developers or integration people. So eventually when we are giving everything to business, there is a collaboration needed from these AI specialists that they will guide them through the journey, and then that is where that evolution will increase, overall organization agility and innovation will be done actually.
Great points, Amar. Morgan, what are your thoughts on this one? The changing role of AI specialists.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's kind of three big ones that I want to call out. I think some of them have been touched on already. So one, definitely kind of the role of advisor as other teams like pick up these tools and build their own models, exactly what we were talking about earlier of looking at that data, what bias exists, what do we need to be evaluating for, how do we need to be monitoring it afterwards, kind of all of those other pieces of data science expertise that need to go in there. I think another one is all the surrounding areas besides just building the model itself, right? Where is that model going to live? How is that going to stay functional? How is it going to scale? Does it need to scale? How are we going to tell if it is, needing to be retrained or rerun? How is it going to be monitored? Kind of all these surrounding pieces that are part of, machine learning jobs or potentially AI specialists, depending on how you define these different roles. And three, I think also there is still going to need to be a lot of customization. We've touched on that a lot already. I think low and no code solutions are getting better and better, but to some extent, not every need at a company is going to be solvable with a more generic solution. And so what I think this allows that's really interesting is, I think to some extent, our workflows can be a lot longer than a normal engineering teams. And so you do end up sometimes in these places where there's a need within the company and you have to say, hey, we'll come back to you in 2 months, 3 months as we build out a whole data set for this, train the model, experiment with different architectures, tune it, set it all up, and we'll come back to you. And we'll kind of hope that it is as valuable as we expected beforehand. And, sometimes that's right. And sometimes it's not. And so what I think is really fun about, oh, can you all still hear me? It looks like I'm frozen a little bit. Okay.
Yep, we agree.
Perfect. I'll keep going. What is really fun about these solutions is you can kind of have multiple, arms out. I forget the phrase of, rods in the fire, whatever it is. But basically, you can have these kind of different use cases of we hypothesize that we can make that an impact in these 5 different ways with these 5 different types of models. Let's very quickly get a low code, no code solution, whether it's the data scientists building them out themselves or enabling that end user to build it out themselves, put those out there and then see which ones are performing the way they want to, the way that we expect, and dig in on those. So, maybe there are some that are the no code solution is all you needed. You needed something simple, something out of the box, that an external tool was able to solve for you. That is solving your problem. That's great. You have another one where, hey, we think that this model is the best we're going to get, but it's just not showing the impact we wanted to see from this kind of feature. So let's not spend a bunch of data science resource there. But we have these other 3 where we are seeing a value, but we're realizing that the model is not as good as it could be in these areas. Can we make a custom internal model to, really get out as much impact as we can from this feature we're adding? And so now you have data scientists working on customizing models where you have more confidence that you're actually going to get that impact that you wanted to see out of those feature additions, out of those big changes, out of these like potentially very innovative, like new big bets. Whereas before you kind of just had to wait for the custom model to be done. This is like another option to test it out faster. So I think that it is really gonna open the gates a lot, but kind of going back to Gil's point, data scientists and AI specialists are going to be more involved with that end impact, because it's going to be a lot of which of the models that we could customize is really going to drive that impact, and how do we tell that early? And these low and no code tools are a great way to do that.
Yeah, great points, Morgan. So we talked a bit earlier at a high level that there are different sort of data concerns and governance concerns that come into play as we democratize access to AI models. But I want to spend a moment drilling down on that into maybe some specifics, if you guys can share, not whether it's within your organization or just some things that you think are important to keep in mind when analyzing sort of the risk here and what needs to be done from an organizational standpoint with respect to data quality, with respect to governance. What are some of those concerns that can arise as you start to deploy AI models to business users, to non-technical users, non-data scientists. Amar, why don't you start with that one?
I think it needs a clear governance framework, and one of the things we talked that AI specialists can help you during that, right? So I think the AI models, and we know that it can introduce biases, compliance risk, data privacy concerns, right? And that's where when we guardrail, what we mean by that, right? I think that's what we need to define and understand, that what guardrails we need to build, right? So obviously role-based access controls and all those things when it comes to accessing those tools and the AI and the data, right? But before that, I think we need to make sure that data foundation, and I talked about it, but I want to reiterate it, right? Because that's what at Informatica we do at core, that and what we call it, like there's a phrase we say that everybody is ready for AI except your data, right? And that the reason we call it out is because, yeah, everybody wants to experiment with things, right? But you need to understand the classification of data before you start using it for any AI implementation, right? So when we say classification, right, what sort of sensitivity or regulatory compliance attached with that data, and for what purpose you can use as part of any sort of automation you're doing around AI, right? And that is a very complex landscape, right? It looks easy, but it's very complex, and that's where the role-based access control and those things comes to, I think, the very last mile of it. Before that, you have to make sure that whatever we are doing around data is auditable, is controlled in a way where your data stewards and people who understand the data and in the business context define it in a way, right, so that the end user, the consumers, which might be your data scientists, which might be your business users, understands it, that okay, these are the right purpose, and it should not be done in a manual way. So that's where people have to think about platform sort of solution, which can first let them or help them to build these guardrails before they embark on this journey. Okay, so that is where, and then we talked about what that there'll be a hybrid scenario where we will be running with low code, but there'll be some customizations. So platform then offers both the things. So build your guardrails, then a low code, and then still an option for some customization. And having that platform approach will, help you to uh, understand from a compliance perspective that okay, what all points the data is crossing within the landscape. Also, you need to have a traceability, that if I want to see as a business user where this data is actually got generated for the very first time, so where that inception takes place. So I'm using at the last mile. So maybe I'm starting using it from a data warehouse or from sitting in a database, but that's not where it is generated. So I need to have a traceability as well, that where it got generated, what all system it has crossed through, and before I'm using it, what sort of quality it is having, how much consistency is there, right? So so when we say guardrails in terms of the data quality, the source we need to understand, and then the classification of data. And once we build these guardrails, then we can make AI safe. And that's where we can tackle all the, AI acts are evolving. It's not, so something which is valid today might be not valid in a year, or it's become a non-compliant, because all these regulations are evolving. So which means if we're doing it in a holistic platform-based manner, we can actually tie in the changes which is coming in the regulatory world as well.
Yeah, great points, Amar. Gil, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think a lot of great points there. I think at the end of the day, as we think about the governance challenges, I'm thinking about a few main things. I think one is the people doing this will be less aware, or less in many cases um, literate in the governance risks and those elements, and like needing to educating them towards those risks, it will be key. It is there's the quality of data they use, but also like how do they use the data when they do this, what exposure does it create on data privacy and security. Further, I think the what we talked about earlier about kind of the importance of data scientists or AI specialists in the measurement of explainability and bias, like those risks, and like, is this actually any good? I think it's something that's very easy for business leaders to like do something and take the response like as is verbatim, and not challenge it to the same extent needed. So I think that's a risk. That is a governance risk, right? Like, are we responsibly using AI when we do so? And that leans into like compliance and governance to the extent of like, we need to make sure that we're compliant when we do these things, that there's no bias baked in, there's no other issues baked in. And those are extremely challenging, and kind of how to build tools and capabilities and guardrails around that in those interactions will be key, and a key challenge here. And one additional thing that I think is slightly different is kind of the existence and potential proliferation of shadow AI, right? With no code tools today, when like there are tools out there today for like no code, low code ETLs, for example, those create a lot of black boxes and a lot of shadow ETLs that are not monitored, not properly monitored. And we don't have proper traceability of what's going on with the data. Are the calculations correct? What's happening in there? And and are not necessarily visible from a centralized point as well. And one of the risks with this democratization of tools and ability to build AI capabilities at the every associate level is the creation of said shadow AI that may contain risk and with very limited ability to actually track and understand what's going on there. So those are mine.
Very good point about shadow AI. I read an article yesterday from MIT using the term BYO AI, that employees are bringing their own AI to work. And the article suggested offering a variety of different large language models as one potential solution to that. If there's certain ones that are better at certain things, then giving, where possible, your employees those options so that they're able to do that securely in ways that you've set up for them to do so, versus doing it on their own, which they likely will do if they don't have enough options. So very good points there. Rosalia?
I think, one thing that needs to definitely happen is to have those checkpoints, especially now with all these newcomers in the AI space, other, non-technical people building AI. Well, one, AI literacy, so making sure that the people that join these new ventures have at least foundational knowledge of AI, right? We don't want to just let anybody come and use and build something, but I think they should go through some kind of foundational training. Now, with that, then use this low code, no code, and make sure that they follow specific checkpoints in their development where, again, as we talked before, seasoned data scientists can come in and make sure that things are done by following certain standards that we have in data science. Maybe not as strict because we're building prototypes, but definitely not just letting it be like you built whatever and we're going to put it in pilot. There has to be some governance following it, right? So there's a data governance piece, very much important, because garbage in, garbage out. But there's also an AI solution governance that needs to be followed. And I think, some companies have done it, and we have done it. We have an entire council whose job is to make sure that they review these solutions at different checkpoints in the AI solution lifecycle, right? From ideation to development, to when you're trying to put it in pilot, to when this thing is in production, to making sure that, okay, this thing is in production. Is it any good? Does it follow, does it align with business objectives? Is it becoming riskier as it stays in production? Or, do we need to improve its performance and all those things? So I think one thing that, we need to add to this conversation is having these checkpoints where, yes, technical and non-technical people are all developing AI, different, with different sort of scope, but all are following these governance protocols.
Yeah, great points, Rosalia. With really the importance of a framework and having those checkpoints is critical. So we're almost out of time, so I want to get to our lightning round here and ask for each of you to give us your one key takeaway and a phrase or two for organizations considering low code, no code AI platforms and all the various opportunities and challenges and risks that come with that. So Morgan, why don't you start with that one?
Can be so hard to boil down, but I'm going to do my best. I think understanding the goal, how the data you're using fits into that goal, and what patterns might exist in the data that either help or hinder that goal. That's my overall summary.
Great point. Rosalia?
I think making sure that, everybody has an opportunity to participate, but also with that, people have a minimum or fundamental knowledge of this space.
Great point. Gil?
I say that low code and no code AI is bound to empower organizations to innovate faster, and it's a big but. In order to be successful in the space, you have to balance it with governance and strategic oversight to make sure you're using it responsibly. Otherwise, it will not serve you well.
Very important. Amar will give you the last word.
Is like it's a start now, because this journey related to AI is a walk, crawl, run journey. So which means choose a strategic code, no code platform as an enabler for rapid innovation and broad adoption. And you need to make sure while platform you choose still maintain governance, scalability, and expert oversight. So always keep human in loop. But yeah, start now to walk.
Yeah, great points, Amar, and great points, all of you. Really enjoyed the discussion. So thank you all for joining us today. If you missed any of the webinar or want to rewatch anything, the recording will be available just a few minutes after the webinar ends if you just refresh this page. And we'll also send out an email tomorrow with the recording, and it will be on our YouTube channel as well, starting tomorrow. I want to say a special thank you again to all of our panelists, as well as to our partners at Informatica for making this webinar possible. And hope you all have a great afternoon. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.